This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
What up, football fans? It is Friday, October 5th, 4 p.m. Eastern, which means the Audible is here. My name is Jimmy the Bag, and I am joined by the legend, Donnie Rightside. How you feeling out there, Donnie?
Feeling good, man. It's Football Friday. Excited to get underway. I know we always have the prep shows on Tuesday, but now we can put the women and children to bed and have some football action here on a Friday night. No better place to be, Jimmy. Thanks for hosting the show as usual. Let's have some fun.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we will be joined by Whale Capper. So our job is to get through all of these football games. So let's not waste any time and get right to the gridiron action. We are joined by Ryan Gosling. We got Joe Yurkovich, Pat McAndrew, Lucky Seven, Jake Bell, Garrett Horton, and Tomarino Tomor in the house. Thank you guys for joining us. Let's get right to work with the 1 o'clock game Sunday. We'll start with Ravens at Browns. Open at Ravens -2.5. Now -3s. It stayed at -3s. The total opened at 47. Then there were 45.5s on Tuesday. Now 45s. We talked a bit about, I felt like the Browns defense looked better than the score showed against the Raiders. They're going to get Mosley back. Jimmy Smith will be here. This is game 2 of the Ravens on a 3 straight on the road situation. The Ravens have beaten the Browns 5 straight in 18 of 20. Mayfield, 496 yards in his last 2 games. He will be tested by this defense with Jimmy Smith back and a defense that's allowing 193.3 yards through the air. Carlos Hyde has rushed for 285 yards and 5 touchdowns. Nick Chubb, 105 yards on just 3 carries last week. Baltimore ranks 4th against the run, allowing just 82.5 yards per game. Flacco looks good. This Ravens offense looks good. At first, I found this very trappy line screaming at me to take the Ravens. I've held off. I have made a bunch of plays. This is not one of them. What are you thinking, Donnie? Ravens at Brown.
Yeah, it's pretty simple to me in this one. I know there's a, sharp contrast, and Sharps love the Browns. They love them all the time because, and I'll say it for the rest of the year, Sharps love teams that win 1 out of every 150 football games. So looks like they're going to be climbing onto the back once again for the Cleveland Browns. I do think Cleveland's going to be able to move the football here. But again, you're dealing with a rookie quarterback who moved the football last week but turned it over 4 times. You can't do that against a competent football team like the Ravens. Sometimes they hang some of those lines out there that make you scratch your head. Pinnacle opened up this one, Jimmy, at 2.5, moved it to 3. It's been 3 all week long, but in these instances, I haven't fired on this game yet, but you need to be checked into a psych ward if you're betting the Cleveland Browns here, only getting 3 points. I'm not saying, look, you should be the end-all, be-all and fire willy-nilly on the Ravens, because it is hard to win on the road in the NFL. That is a point. But if you are continuously betting the Cleveland Browns, if the Cleveland Browns getting 14.5, I'd say, you know what? Let me check in and check this game out. But look, you can't win, and we'll extend it even more. You can't win 1 out of every 200 football games and expect me to think you're going to win a football game this week. Not happening.
Yeah, I agree, but not everybody in the chat does. We have Drew from the SBR Forum liking the Jets, Seattle, and Cleveland here. We have Yayas joining us, Glenn Kelly, Raleigh Hernandez, some great cappers. Mario Martinez Jr. says, taking the Ravens and the under as well. My man, Mr. Say 10, is liking Baltimore. And Taylor H says, who's going to lose money fading the Chiefs this week? Me. I am. And I'm not afraid. Marco Lou says, we don't love the Browns to win. We just love the Browns to cover. Brian Seymour says, give me the Ravens. Mr. Say10 says, Baker Mayfield career is 2 games away from being over. Whoa. And Tomar says, Flacco has been one of the worst bets in the NFL as a road favorite. I'm not betting Cleveland, though. Yeah, I agree with you, Donnie. I think it'd be unsafe to take the Browns, but I'm not really that interested in taking the Ravens here, although I would be Ravens or no play. What do you think about this total at 45?
Look, if you're looking from both sides there, I think Baltimore is going to be able to move the football against Cleveland. The Oakland Raiders did whatever they wanted to against this Cleveland Browns team. Now, look, Cleveland did play well when they went on the road versus the New Orleans Saints, which is really an outlier. They were busted up at home in the rain by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I look to see them scoring here. And again, it gets back to the point. When you have Baker Mayfield, he's a boomer bust guy, which is fantastic for the over. He's going to have no problems throwing it deep. He's going to have no problems throwing it into double coverage. He's going to throw a touchdown or he's going to turn it over. You had the perfect storm last week versus the Oakland Raiders. He threw the ball very well, but also made bonehead decision after bonehead decision, turning the football over. It's great for the over. I'm only looking at an over in this game.
Interesting. Love hearing that breakdown. And I will put a little asterisk right there. And we have been led perfectly into our next game by the question, who's going to lose money fading the Chiefs? It will be me. I'm on Jaguars +3 at +101. I made that an official pick on Low Shack in the Bag. I've also bet it. Opened at Chiefs -3.5. Now -3s across the board. Total open at 48.5. Now there's 49s. We talked about how bad this Chiefs secondary look, how bad they need Eric Berry. And we talked about Houston looking old. I really felt Chris Jones, Alan Bailey, Xavier Williams, Anthony Hitchens, Reggie Ragland showing very little. Scandrick looking bad. We know that Sammy Watkins will play. Fournette has been ruled out. Kareem Hunt finally broke out. Looked good last game, 121 yards, 19 carries. This is a top-ranked offense from the Chiefs. 36.3 points a game, going up against the NFL's number one scoring defense at 14 points allowed. The number one total defense, holding opponents to an average of 259.3 total net yards. Kansas City, obviously, this offense looks incredible, but I feel like Jacksonville can put, or at least make them pump the brakes here. Jaguars are the only team that is not allowed a first half touchdown. I know they limited a weak New York Jets offense, but just 144 passing yards. Bortles, 388 yards. Maybe he has seen the light. I don't have, this guy is not consistent. I don't have a ton of confidence in Bortles, but he should be able to throw against this weak Chiefs secondary. I'm on the Jaguars here, and very curious to see how you feel on this Friday Audible show, Donnie.
Yeah, Jimmy, it looks like there might be a little bit of rain in the forecast, but it's supposed to be out of there relatively early in that football game. Let's just say, if you were backing the Jacksonville Jaguars in this game, you want to see rain come down just about the entire game, because the one thing that Blake Bortles can do, like an Alex Smith, he can be mobile. He can get outside the pocket. If it's 3rd and 3, he can run for the first down. And in a rain-soaked environment, that could go a long way. And also, the rain theoretically would slow down the Kansas City offense, a little bit harder to catch the football, a little bit harder to, get in and out of your breaks. So that would help a staunch defense like the Jacksonville Jaguars. But you're also asking for the Jacksonville Jaguars to win this game on the road. You're not getting 4.5, 6.5, 7 points where you can just hang around. If you're going to hang a 3 out there, Jacksonville, you better think that Jacksonville can win this football game outright, not, hey, they can hang around and see what happens at the end. It's hard to step in front of Kansas City right now with how well they're playing, but this is finally one of those games saying, all right, Kansas City, we know your offense is good. Your film is out there on Patrick Mahomes. You're going to face a really good defense that's going to be able to get after it. And that's going to be the style of clash this year. This is one of those games, Jimmy, I won't be betting or be anywhere near this, because I can make a case for Jacksonville's defense slowing it down, Bortles playing a good football game, but you can also make a case for Kansas City at home. It's going to be extremely loud. They're going to have the advantage. And the one thing that you do know is if it's not raining, Kansas City should be able to score points. They can score points on anybody. It's a tough game. The true coin flip of the week for me is this game here. I don't have a great read on it.
Interesting. Mario Martinez Jr. saying Jax +3, taking the under as well, 90% rain. And then Total Bullshark comes in saying KC Jax over. Ace Farmer says Jax defense going to try to embarrass these boys. He says that Bortles balls out in big games. Tomor says I don't trust Bortles against good defenses, but that shouldn't be an issue here. Datfire TV says not betting against KC, especially how they're playing 4-0 against the spread. And Davison is also on the Jags money line. Same with Marco Lu. Jags money line. I like this. I'm very comfortable. One of my favorite CFL cappers on the Low Shack in the Bag show, Kelly McMillan, is so confident in the Chiefs. He gave me an extra half point, and we have a steak dinner on it. And it did concern me how confident he was in these Chiefs. And Ace Farmer saying Jets became underdogs. They did, and we will get to that game shortly. But first, Donnie, my first giant victory on the market. I got the Titans -3 at -120.
Nice.
Now you can only get 5.5. It feels like a victory already. 5.5 now. Total open at 39.5. It went back to 39 on Tuesday. Now it's back to 39.5. I said that Tennessee would become bigger favorites. They have. We talked about if the Bills were going to be able to take advantage of Vaccaro and Woodyard injuries. I don't think they will. I like this Titans defense, even without those two guys. How well is Jarrell Casey playing? Micah Hyde will be out. Marcus Mariota is getting healthier. AFC Offensive Player of the Week, 30 for 43, 344 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception. I'm on the over season win total on the Titans as well. But each of the Titans' 3 victories have come by just 3 points. LaShawn McCoy looks terrible. He's obviously got a lot of other things in his head right now other than football. Defensively, the Bills have been good enough. Ranked 9th in yards allowed per play, 11th against the rush, and 15th overall. Tennessee has to get Derrick Henry going, has to get Dion Lewis going. I feel great about getting this line at 3 points. I'm very confident in this play. What are you thinking here? Titans at Bills.
Yeah, that's nice because now you're asking the Tennessee Titans to go on the road and win by a touchdown. You saw one of those overtime games played out on a Thursday with even shorter rest where Indianapolis basically didn't even show up to play the New England Patriots last night. Now you're going to get Tennessee after a hard-fought game down to the wire, lost a couple players due to injury. Now you're going to come into Buffalo, say what you want. I mean, look, Tennessee's the better football team. We can both agree that here. The one thing that's going to hurt the cause if you want to back the Buffalo Bills, again, is it's still a rookie quarterback that's going to be lining up against with an offense that tentatively didn't do anything last week. And we're not talking about going up against the doomsday Steelers of the 1970s. That was the Green Bay Packers limping defense out there that didn't show much of a fight. Now you're going to come back in and face a much more formidable opponent. I like where you got that line at, Jimmy, because if you look at the Tennessee Titans over this year, and basically over the past couple of years, they're not a team that's going to run away with the lead. They're going to play it a little bit more close to the vest. Marcus Mariota more likely to pull the football down and run than, throw a 75-yard touchdown pass and really get after it. I can see a lower scoring game in this one, but if you have the 3, that's fantastic because I do think the Tennessee Titans can win this football game. But now if you're looking at 5.5, it makes it a little bit sketchy here because I think the Bills can play with the Titans, but having you at that 3, Jimmy, that's the way to go for me. And again, you just lose money in the NFL betting rookie quarterbacks and asking them to win football games. This is another case right here, but I do think Buffalo can hang around, just a matter of what type of points you get in this one.
Yeah, I agree. The Titans just don't have that ability to smash opponents by big scores. Mario Martinez Jr. says this is Buffalo's only home game in the month of October, so I think the Bills are going to come out and play. Tomer says Titans have a top offensive line. They should be built for the road. And Jim Tobleson, man, love this guy. Season ticket holder with the Bills says, I'd like to say the Bills play better at home, but this is only the second home game. Chance of showers throughout the day. The defense is playing all right, but Allen won't be able to do enough. Getting some love from my man, Anna Merrick, Mr. Satan. Love these guys. Nut Flush, Allen. Thank you all so much for joining us. Mr. Satan says Santa Anita misses you. I miss Santa Anita desperately. That's my favorite track in the world. Let's keep rolling. Giants at Panthers. Now, I like this play, and this is a line move that I'm going to be a loser with. I got him -7 at -102. It opened at -6. It went to -7. Now back to 6.5s and 6s. I really feel like the Panthers are going to smash the Giants in the mouth here. We talked on Tuesday about how meekly this Giants offense is scoring. They haven't scored 30 points since Week 17, 2015. Evan Engram out of the lineup, won't be there. They miss him badly. I think that Olivier Vernon is going to play. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe you can enlighten us with that.
He's out for the game. Yeah, Jim, he was announced out today. So that's gonna
perfect.
I mean, he hasn't played yet this year, but
yeah.
If you like Carolina, that's a nice little one to have in your back pocket.
That's great news. Panthers have won 7 straight at home. McCaffrey is showing everybody just how talented he is. 166 yards per game on the ground. That's the Panthers, are 166 yards per game on the ground. He's averaging 90.3 yards rushing per game. Newton can get the job done and does get the job done. I'm curious what you think, what kind of a boost they're going to get from Eric Reed being signed. But I just feel like this Panthers offense going up against this Giants defense that ranks 29th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed will get hit in the mouth. I like the Panthers here, and I don't like the line moving against me, even though it's small, but I like the Panthers here. What are you thinking here, Donnie? Giants at Panthers.
Yeah, I think the Giants might have, can just chalk this one up on the outset when you look at it from an outlying position that they think they're going to lose this football game. Because why would you risk? Olivier Vernon finally gets back to practice this week, but are you going to risk that knowing the Philadelphia Eagles, a much more important divisional game, is on deck on a Thursday night game? You're just trying to get in and out, maybe not get some injuries and see if you can surprise the Eagles because you have a major advantage playing the Eagles at home on Thursday night football. The road team tends to get slaughtered each and every week in that environment. We'll see if it holds true. But if you're looking from a Giants perspective here, what did you like so far from the season? I actually think, Jimmy, the Giants play pretty good defense out there. They are shorthanded. They're not having their best pass rusher, but the defensive coordinate's been coming up scheme after scheme after scheme. If you watch the game, if you just look at the final score with the Saints, same old Giants defense. But for 3.5 quarters, that Giants defense was holding the New Orleans Saints to field goal after field goal after field goal. The problem with the Giants is the offense. That fossil at quarterback that can't get out of the way of everything. Looks like his arm is turning into one of those Peyton Manning noodle arms where he can't get the ball downfield. And now you're finally starting to see the real MO come out, the chirping behind there. Because I agree with Odell Beckham. It's not very rare I agree with this guy, but he is right. If you are the head coach or offensive coordinator of the New York Giants and you don't throw 10 times downfield deep, 40-plus yards with Odell Beckham, you should be fired immediately. The offense isn't built to dink and dunk. They're not good enough on the offensive line. They're not good enough across the board to dink and dunk and go 4 to 5 yard plays. They should be built on play action passes because they have a Ferrari at running back and an absolute Lamborghini at wide receiver who they can't get the ball too deep. If you can't beat the New Orleans Saints deep, how are you going to beat anybody deep in the NFL at this point? It comes down to me is you can't back Eli Manning right now. It's a shame that they haven't moved on from this guy to get a younger quarterback, more mobile, who can actually get these guys the football in this position. I think it's a really bad spot for the New York Giants. Having the Philadelphia Eagles on deck is one of those games, Jimmy, that says, hey, we might lose this game, but we got to turn around real quick and beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's not rush back Olivier Vernon. We'll use him next week for Thursday and play this game. It's not a good spot for the Giants to be in here.
Yeah, I love that breakdown. It gives me more confidence. I've had a lot of success with these Panthers so far this year, and I will continue taking them and feeling good about it. Now, this is a big game here that I want to talk about. Broncos at Jets. This is a game where it opened at Jets -2.5. Then on Tuesday, they were -1. And now Denver is a favorite. I was also very close to pulling the trigger on the under. I was close to doing it when we talked about this game on Tuesday. I was close to doing it on the morning show. Now, Trumaine Johnson, and I like this Jets defense. I talked about Avery Williamson, Jamal Adams, Trumaine Johnson. Trumaine Johnson strained quadriceps Thursday in practice, ruled out for Sunday. He's expected to miss multiple games. I'm thankful, and I want to hear your breakdown, but I'm thankful that I didn't already take the under because I think Trumaine Johnson is extremely important. Now, Keenum has failed to throw a touchdown pass since week 1. He's throwing twice as many interceptions as touchdown passes. This Denver team averages 19 points a game over their last 3. Darnold, averaging 217 yards passing, failed to complete 50% of his passes the last 2 games. This Jets passing game, they just didn't give Darnold the weapons that you need to have at wide receiver. Denver's won 5 of the last 6 meetings here. What do you think of this market change towards the Broncos now the favorite? And what do you think Trumaine Johnson's effect not being in the lineup will have on the total?
Yeah, you got big wide receivers coming in for the Denver Broncos. So if you're going to be down one of your better players, especially a cornerback, that's not a great week to have that happen to you playing the Denver Broncos. Coming in this game, look, this is another one of those big games where the public is weighed in on one football team with the Denver Broncos, and the sharps, so to speak, are coming in on the Jets. I would actually feel a lot better if the Jets didn't have a rookie quarterback here, and maybe like a Teddy Bridgewater or so would get the start. Because if you look at the New York Jets and the way they played, we give a lot of kudos to that opening night for Sam Darnold. Let's not forget, folks, he threw for 180 yards versus the Detroit Lions. It wasn't like he threw for 480. You played the Miami Dolphins. Yes, you threw for 320 yards in that ball game, but you were down for the majority of the game. Then you throw in back-to-back clunkers at Cleveland, who doesn't have a very good defense. And then Jackson, look, you're going to get a mulligan against Jacksonville. They're going to do that a lot. But it's a rookie quarterback, and the same adage goes on. You're going to burn your money. Unless you're getting a rookie quarterback getting 4.5, 6.5, 7.5, 10.5 in football games. You're expecting the Jets to win this football game with a rookie quarterback. I know it's a short week. I know you played your division rival on the Monday Night Football. You probably should have even won that game. You have the quick turnaround. You go into New York City to play a team outside of it's obviously not an AFC West team. It's an AFC East team. But again, it just gets back to I cannot place my money on a rookie quarterback expected to win in the NFL. And the Jets aren't a great football team to begin with. I think Denver's going to be able to move the football, and I think Denver overall is the better team. If they come to play in this game and they play decently, they should be able to handle the New York Jets.
They should be able to handle the New York Jets. Yes, I agree. Troy V says very weird line with Broncos Jets staying away. Mr. Say 10 says Broncos testing the rookie. A lot of running plays in Jets Denver. Tomor says Bortles destroyed the Jets defense last week. I'm not betting this game. This is but Trenton Claxton, who's been very hot on our Low Shack in the Bag show, says Denver.
Lock it in.
Yeah, with the lock.
Yeah.
I can totally understand your side with the Broncos here. How do you feel about the total? And I know that you mentioned that, the big wide receivers coming in, this is the time you'd want Trumaine Johnson. But do you have an angle or an edge on either the over and the under? It's stuck at 42.5 all week.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the game, you say, all right, the Jets offense isn't the end-all be-all. They usually play some decent defense. Does Denver have a hangover coming in? But we all get back to the point, Jim, it's so hard. Like, this isn't the days where, the Pittsburgh Steelers are lining up Jerome Bettis and just trying to pound the football and run the clock. In today's NFL, with all the penalties you have and all the times you're going to be dropping back to pass, 42 is such every single thing has to go your way in order for a 42 to end up happening in a football game. I'm only looking at the over in this game. Maybe Darnold, has a boomer bust type game, throws 2 interceptions and 2 touchdowns. You can live with it there. I think Denver's going to be able to move the football and have some success in this game. But it just gets back to the point, taking the unders where unless you're getting 47, everything has to go right. Even if the game is 10-3 at the half. Like last week, Jimmy, with the Tennessee Titans and the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like that over-under. At half, it's 10-3. You got that one in the bag. That game ends up going over. The same thing we talked about a couple weeks ago, Jacksonville and the New England Patriots. That game was a stone-cold under with the pace, and a couple plays in the fourth quarter send it over the total. 42, I'm not interested in an under whatsoever. It would only be over for me.
Interesting. That is what I needed to hear to stay off that under. Thank you for your help. Josh Burris coming in saying, where's Whale Capper? That guy is making money. Respect. Whale Capper will be coming in very, very soon. Falcons at Steelers. Open at Steelers -3.5. Then it went down. Well, there was -3.5, -3s. Now it's just 3s. The total keeps going up. This high total keeps going up. 56.5. was 57s on Tuesday, now 50, or a couple 57s and a halves. Now it's 58s across the board. We talked about how bad the Steelers' defense has been on Tuesday. Shazier is not being replaced. Offensively, the Steelers seem to be unbalanced without Le'Veon Bell. And we talked about the injuries to the Falcons' defense. Neal, Allen, Deion Jones all done. Now Grady Jarrett injured as well. The Steelers have started slow all season, 42-6 being outscored in the first quarter of the season. Quinn said that the Falcons' defense, which gave up 43 points to the Saints, that this Falcons' defense that the Steelers, haven't run the ball with any effectiveness in their past 3 games, and he thinks that they will be able to take care of business and focus on just pass defense. I don't know if this is going to work, but the Falcons bring one of the top passing attacks in the league. Julio Jones, 502 yards, 0 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, 6 touchdown passes. Let's see what goes on now. Derek Shelby might be out as well. The Falcons had 3 sacks against the Bengals, but that's all because of Takk McKinley. Shelby's status uncertain. Grady Jarrett looks like he'll be not in the lineup. They signed veteran Michael Bennett. I don't know if that will help. This total keeps skyrocketing. Falcons at Steelers. What are you thinking here, Donnie?
Yeah, look, if we're looking from a side perspective, Atlanta and Pittsburgh, you're going to have a dome team going outdoors on a little bit slower surface. And we all know Atlanta is built for dome play. They played 3 straight games at home, now finally going on the road. So that might be a little bit of a shakeup. You saw last week, Pittsburgh didn't play very well in the second half for 2 straight weeks, ended up beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road, but then coming home and losing to the division rivals. The Baltimore Ravens tied up. They just lost the lead late, didn't play very good football. But there is something to be said about being home. Look, this is one of those games where loser goes home. Loser probably doesn't get in the playoffs. It's all but done. So both of these teams are going to bring their A games. But if you're going to ask me, look, the Steelers are at home. It's -3. Do I think the Steelers can move the football against Atlanta? Yes. Do I think Atlanta can move the football against the Steelers? I do. But when everything settles down, I just think overall the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers is better. I think they'll be able to run the football. And you're talking about a little bit lighter defense that's built on speed to get around the edge on turf. You're going to be playing on grass. I think that's the advantage to the Pittsburgh Steelers here. I think they're the better overall football team in this environment. If we were playing down in Atlanta, it probably would be a role reversal saying, look, Atlanta's, this is the dome. This is exactly what they do. But a little bit slower surface. I'm going to give the edge to the Pittsburgh Steelers. To the over-under, look, do we think there's going to be a lot of points? Of course we do. Both of these offenses can move the ball. The defenses haven't shown too much resiliency out there, but we're talking about a 58. I'm just not involved. Like sometimes there's value you can find in a total. I just don't think there's value in a 58 at this point. Should it go over? Nice weather, 80 degrees, light wind? Sure it could. But again, you're talking about every single thing having to go right to probably hit this total. If I'm just being a contrarian out there, I'm going to say, you know what? 58 and a half. I'll just sit on the under in this one and see what happens.
Yeah, I understand that. And Rain Man joining us again today. Thank you, Rain Man. Rain Man said on Tuesday, he said, I'll repeat, indoors over, but outdoors equals under all day. Yeah. Kyle Jack liking the Falcons money line. Mario Martinez has an under 58 in my card, but Jesse's girl, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, high scoring, really high, a shootout. Tomor says Atlanta has the offensive line to be a good road offense. Pitt defense is garbage too. Michael Irvalina liking Pittsburgh, and right below that, Rashawn Brown liking Atlanta. Wow. I'm off this game.
Good take. By the way, Jimmy, good ticket split in that one, too. About a 50-50. So you're going to have a lot of people in Atlanta, a lot of people in Pittsburgh, and it's a good game, not because the records are good, but it's almost like one of those where the loser just gets kicked off of the bridge, and that's the end of their season. So there's going to be a lot to play for in this game.
No doubt. I'm going to be comfortably off this game watching this one. Well, it is half past, which means we get joined by the whale capper in the West Coast that looks gorgeous. That tree behind you looks a little haunting, but it's very, very nice to have you, Whale Capper. Also, what a celebration we had on Monday. You hit with the Broncos. I hit with the Chiefs. It doesn't get any better than that, Whale Capper. But you've been hot. We love having you on the show. How you feeling?
I'm terrific, man. Thanks again for having me back. And that was fun that landed right on for us so that we could both be winners on Monday. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Well, we can't wait to have you. Let's get right into this right now. We are going to start, Whale Capper, with Packers at Lions. Lions, I got the Lions at +1.5 with a lot of confidence. I've been taking a lot of heat for it too. I like this spot for them. It opened at a pick'em. Packers went to -1 to -1.5, now back to -1s and the pick'em. The total opened at 51. It actually was down to 50.5 on Tuesday. It's back at 51. I thought the over seemed reasonable. We know that the Packers offense didn't look good against the Bills. Rodgers was very upset. Cobb and Allison are both questionable. Green Bay is 13-3 against Detroit in games started by Rodgers. Rodgers has been playing with this left knee that could be in trouble on this Ford Field. That's turf. He called the offense terrible, but they did get 423 yards of total offense. Running back Aaron Jones has been playing well. My big thing on this game was that I think the Green Bay running attack is weak, and that will offset the fact that the Lions have such a weak rush defense. The best part about these Lions is their pass defense with Darius Slay, who's so excited to go up against Rodgers. And then obviously the best thing about the Packers is Rodgers and the way he throws. I love the way Kerryon Johnson's looked. Matthew Stafford is playing well, 1,202 yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 picks. Golden Tate, 28 catches. Galladay, Marvin Jones Jr., both playing well. I like Detroit in this game. Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? I'm on the Lions +1.5.
Okay, well, let's do our best to dispel the rumors that Aaron Rodgers is still limited. I think he looked darn frisky. Mobile, a couple mobile moments, moving around, getting out of the pocket. One really nice run down the sidelines where he was galloping pretty athletically, I thought. I don't think the knee is bothering him anymore, or if it is, they've gotten it worked out where they got a nice brace on there, and he's feeling comfortable enough that he's not, it's not limiting his performance, in my opinion. But I see where you're coming from. The Lions are a better team than the public thinks. That's for darn sure. I think you pretty much have to throw out that Week 1 game against the Jets. I don't think that tells us really anything about either of those teams. And so then you're left with they had a very competitive road game against San Francisco, where they easily could have won that one if they had played a little bit better defense in the first half. They beat the Patriots obviously in impressive fashion in primetime. And then last week they were a key stop away from hanging on to win on the road again against Dallas. And yeah, it's clear that there are limitations with the Detroit defense. I don't think that the fact that they can't stop the run is very meaningful. I don't think that that's an important matchup in this one. I'm more worried about the fact that they can't generate pressure. They are getting virtually no pressure on the quarterback. If you give Aaron Rodgers time, if you let the play break down, he's going to find his guys downfield. He's going to score some points. You flip it around and you look at the injury report for the Packers. I see a lot of names on there that I think are pretty impactful, especially in the secondary. I like what the Detroit has kind of found their identity, at least in doing these multiple wide receiver sets and running some pretty interesting formations. I think the Lions are going to be able to score. So my look on this one is the over. I think the side is pretty tight. And I could see Detroit coming away with the upset, but it's just too tough to line up and fade Aaron Rodgers with such a short number at this point in the season.
I hear that. All very good points. And Donnie and I talked on Tuesday. I said, Donnie, I want to put a line through that opening terrible game that Patricia had where everything seemingly went wrong. And Donnie said, yeah. Put a line through that. As soon as I put a line through that, I was like, God, give me the Lions. Donnie, what are you thinking here? Lions, I got them at +1.5. It's +1 or pick'ems now.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look last week versus Buffalo, the nice win, 22-0, but it was Buffalo. That's sort of an outlier game, 58 yards rushing, 87 yards held up by the defense. I think obviously the Detroit offense is going to have much better success against this Green Bay team. But the one thing I'd be worried about if you're looking to look, we can all just say, hey, let's take Aaron Rodgers. And you're right. Now he's practicing full week. So how much that knee is actually bothering? I think it's bothering him a little bit there. He's not 100%, but it looks like it is getting better and on the mend. But Jimmy Graham's banged up. All three of your wideouts are banged up in this football game. If you can say to me, like, hey, you know what? Green Bay is going to shift down and really run the football, because I think you can run the ball against the Detroit Lions, but that's not how you win in the NFL. You don't just line up and say, let's run the ball 45 times because they can't stop the run and see what happens on the opposite end. I think Detroit's going to be ready for this football game, but not because it's, hey, Detroit's at home, they can surprise them. I'm just not sure what I'm getting out of the Green Bay Packers offense. Should they be able to move the football? I mean, I guess Detroit's not the end-all be-all, but you're right, Jimmy, when you look at it. They have a very good pass defense out there. Nobody really lighting them up. And then the outlying situation, again, is something's still not clicking with the Green Bay Packers here. They had one road game, got torched in that game. Outside of beating an anemic Buffalo Bills team last week, they haven't looked very good on the season. I think Detroit's in a great spot here to stop them. As for the over-under, don't really have too many thoughts on that. But look, I'm not taking a banged-up quarterback with all three of his weapons, wide receiver, may not play, may get in there, maybe 50%, and also my all-world tight end being 50% as well. That's not a recipe for winning football games on the road in the NFL. Detroit are nobody for me in this game.
Ooh, I like it. Let's move on to Dolphins at Bengals. I was low on both these teams to start the season, and obviously the Bengals have made me look terrible, but I will be right about these Dolphins, and I said on Tuesday that they could lose out. Ton of injuries. Daniel Kilgore, Josh Sitton done for the year. This team does not have enough depth to handle that. We talked about Jones, McCain, Hayes, Branch all hurt. Devontae Parker hurt. I told you, man, this team, I just don't feel like it has enough talent to handle all these injuries. They put up 7 points against a bad Patriots defense. I'm on Bengals -6 at -110. There is a -5.5 on the board, but most of the market has it at -6. I'm excited to see Vontaze Burfict back. They may have Billy Price back. Yes, Eifert's done for the year, but Mixon should be in the lineup. Miami holds a 15-6 series lead over Cincinnati. They are 2-1 with Tannehill matched up against Dalton. Tannehill will be looking for Stills, 29 touchdown receptions, 16.3 yards per catch. average in 6 seasons. However, I know the Eifert. I mean, Eifert's a huge talent, but this Bengals team is used to playing without him. I know that their backup tight ends aren't that strong. I still think that they'll be able to take care of business. I think Kilgore and Sitton are huge losses. Let's start with you, Donnie. I'm on Bengals -6. I got it at -110.
Now, because when you take a look at this football game, you say, hey, look, everything's going to go Cincinnati's way. You're not going to fault them for getting a split, beating Atlanta in the last couple of seconds there down in Atlanta, but the week before they're getting beat by Carolina. A nice one-on-one split. You come home, you can put your foot down and your foot on the gas pedal in this division in the AFC. But then you take a look and say, you know what? This is the Bengals. This is Marvin Lewis. This is the Ginger Ninja at quarterback here. They're used to playing at pick-ems, getting 3, getting 4, getting 5. And, you say, hey, Bengals can keep it close. Now, all of a sudden, the Bengals are playing that role reversal of the team that's on the hunt and laying 6 points. This is one of those rare air games that you say, you know what? This is one of those moments where the Bengals are going to Bengal. Can the Dolphins come in and provide support here? Banged up on the offensive line, losing a couple guys on defense. Didn't look very good against New England. But who the hell usually goes up to New England anyway and looks good when they play Bill Belichick and the Patriots in New England? The public is going to look at that and say, hey, look, they went up there when they were playing well and got shattered by a real team. Now they're going to go up and play Cincinnati. Look, it's one of those games. I'm not going to be probably betting this football game, but Cincinnati -6 just scares me right off the bat because that's not really what they're used to. I like Cincinnati as that surprise team that can, hey, pick them, just win the football game. You're asking Cincinnati to win by 7. Could they do it? Sure, they can, but I'm going to be far away from this game on either side here.
Joey Kerr backing you up there saying, I don't feel comfortable laying 5+ points with the Bengals. They're a dog team, man. Noli No says Bengals play well at home. Tomor says Atkins and Dunlap should destroy that offensive line. I agree completely with that, Tomor. What are you thinking here, Whale Capper? Dolphins at Bengals.
I had Dolphins circled off the first, the early number here. There was clearly about a 3-point overreaction between what we expected to see as far as a line in this game and what they ended up hanging. And that, to the best I can tell you, it's not based on the fact that they lost their center. That was entirely people overreacting to the way the Dolphins looked against the Patriots. That was just a darn flat performance. They never looked competitive in that game. That kind of stuff happens when you go to play Patriots on the road sometimes. And we've seen that happen a lot in the past with Dolphins teams that were actually kind of frisky. So, I had the Dolphins kind of identified as the line value side when the market opened. It should have been around 3.5 or 3. And I had to back off because losing your center is, if in the best case scenario, you can recover with a replacement level player and kind of, click well, but you're on the road. You're playing against Geno Atkins. This is just spells disaster for this Miami offense, in my opinion. I can make a pretty strong case that the total here is about 4 points too high. The Bengals have looked amazing on offense. They've scored lots of points. They were just we just saw them in Atlanta playing against the worst defense in the league on the fastest surface in the league. Like that, right away that inflates how many points you score. I don't think you get anywhere near 30 with Cincinnati in this game. I think there are some pieces on the Miami defense, particularly their number 1 cornerback, who can really give AJ Green a hard time on Sunday, that can keep this score depressed. I think my only real angle on this one is the under, and I know it opened and it's been bet down and you've lost a couple points, but to me it still feels 4 points too high. So that's really the only position I could advocate in this one.
Wow, I like that position. I like that breakdown. That under does sound appealing. What do you think of that under, Donnie?
Yeah, no, look, 48.5, it seems like a little bit higher of a number. I don't think the Dolphins really want to get into a game where it's going to say, let's just shoot it out and get after with A.J. Green and see what happens in that. I think their advantage to win the football game is not win this 31-28 on the road, but more likely a 24-17 type game. So I would agree that I think it's a little bit too high at this number, just because the Miami Dolphins, to me, they're not a team that's going to press the issue on offense.
Yeah, I find that more and more appealing. Great breakdown, guys. Let's move on to Raiders at Chargers. Initially, I wanted to take the Chargers team total over, but at 30+, I became quite hestant. Even though the Raiders are a bad team, I just don't think we're going to get rich taking these 30-point team total overs. Open Chargers -7, now and then -5s. And now the market, now it's Tuesday, now the market's all over the place, between -4.5s, 5s, 5.5, 6s. The total opened at 52, is 53.5 on Tuesday. There are still 53.5s available, now 52.5s. Having Lugit back is going to be a big lift. I've become a huge Derwin James fan. I love what Gus Bradley is doing with him. I think he's going to be a top 5 safety in this league. Now, Lynch rushed for 130 yards against Cleveland. I did not expect Lynch to be quite as good as he's been, and I'm still not sure if we'll see that throughout this whole season. Carr, 35 for 58, 437 yards, 4 touchdowns, but there still were 2 picks. He's still making some questionable decisions. I'm not sure what to do with this game now. Trenton Claxton says Raiders, Jimmy. Joey Kerr says Raiders, Chargers over is my pick. I'm not sure exactly. And then of course, Donnie kept mentioned on Tuesday about how, this will feel like a Raiders home game. And that's exactly what Mr. Satan is saying here. This is a tough spot. Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? I know you're out on the West Coast. Raiders at Chargers.
Well, Satan knows. The ratio of Raiders to Chargers fans in this one's probably going to be about 28,000 to 1. And I'd say the Raiders we know have a bad defense, period. On top of being not very deep. We've seen them give up just gobs of yards and gobs of points in the second half so far this year. And you brought up the 31-point total for the Chargers as a team total. Chargers have hit their team total every week so far this year. A couple of them haven't even been close calls. So I think you're talking about 2 very legitimate offenses. People will probably look at the Raiders offense and not consider them as good as some of the other elite offenses in the NFL because they see Derek Carr and they see him make mistakes. They see him play hesitant at times. But the metrics would bear out that the Raiders offense is like legitimately elite and can score points. And then so, all this, combines to me to be, this is going to be a tight game. It's probably going to, end up a margin somewhere around 3 points. So if you want to take the Raiders in the points and say, hey, this is a division game. Raiders are going to have the home crowd in Southern California. I'll just have some home points in a tight game. That makes sense to me. Over 53 makes sense to me. I didn't end up taking anything on this one, but it's going to be a lot of fun watching this one, watching the scoring. I would look for maybe Chargers second half if they get off to a typical Chargers lousy start, make some dumb decisions, do some dumb penalties, dumb turnovers, maybe look for them to come back and win in the second half. And then if for whatever reason the offenses aren't clicking early, I'll probably get involved with the live total, live over, something like that, because to me this one's going over 50, 53. That's the only way to approach it.
That Fire TV says over 53.5. Michael Irvelina, over. Donnie, can't wait to hear what you have to say about Raiders at Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, it looked at, getting the Chargers out there to cover anything above like 1 point is sort of like pulling your teeth in this. They sort of rolled over last week, the San Francisco 49ers. Before you could blink your eye, they're down. And even when they seemingly take control of the football game, they still let teams through the back door at the end of football games. But I think there is one thing in common that you hear me talk about quite a bit in college football and professional football. If you're looking to take an over, at least one team has to have a boom or bust quarterback. If you watched the Cleveland Browns game last week, there were some throws that David Carr made on the 2-point conversion and the touchdown late in the game that very elite quarterbacks make. And then there's a few throws that you've even seen all year long that said, what the hell is he doing? What the hell is Derek Carr doing in this type of situation throwing footballs like this? He's the type of guy that we talk about, the Ryan Fitzpatricks and even Baker Mayfield now, it seems like, likes to participate, where he's going to throw 2 or 3 touchdown passes, but throw 2 or 3 interceptions that might wind up going 6 the other way or happening in your own territory, which you just can't have. That's key when you're looking to take the totals. But I think the Chargers can literally move up and what do the Raiders do well? They don't really rush the quarterback that well. They don't have fantastic linebacker play. They don't have anybody in the secondary. And the one thing we know, a well-balanced offense for the Chargers should be able to do whatever they want as long as the Chargers don't charger out there and blow field goals and extra points, because when you're dealing with 52.5, 53, every single point matters. And if you know anything about the Chargers, they're going to miss a couple extra points. Real quick before you get to the next game here. For this weekend only, BetOnline has given SBR followers a 100% signing bonus up to $1,000. Just go to sportsbookreview.com, click on the BetOnline link, use the promo code, folks, UFC 229. One more thing on this as well. If it only accounts here for you folks as a first-time depositor, but if you also message them on social media, you will also get a $25 free play included. Bet online. Look how big our program is. We're reading inline sponsors here in the middle. See what Whale Capper does to the show, Jimmy? We immediately elevate and also get sponsors.
Yeah. Look how cool this guy looks, man. Are you kidding me? Man. I love it. I love having you guys on the show. That's very exciting. I didn't know BetOnline was doing that. So great tip to
neither
everybody.
did I. I hope I got that right and it was for the correct show. But anyway, check out BetOnline, folks. We'll make them some money here.
I like it.
I hear there's a fight this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Could be. Yes, we have a problem with
one.
the guy's last name, but yes, there is a fight out there depending on how you pronounce the one guy's last name.
Habib McGregor is good.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a wild weekend in Vegas, no doubt. Okay, let's keep rolling right along. Cardinals at 49ers. I have some intel from my friends who follow this 49ers team very, very closely. Richburg and McGlinchey are both good to go. In fact, Staley and Sherman may be good to go. Both Staley and Sherman may be in this lineup. And if they are, this is a no-brainer bet to me on the 49ers. Opened at Niners -5, and -4.5 on Tuesday. Now there's 4s and 3.5. The total opened at 41. Now there's 40s. Gary Gilliam is god-awful. We got to keep him off the field. If we want to protect Beathard, keep him off the field. And we will be able to do that if all Staley, Richburg, and McGlinchey will all be there. The Cardinals have won each of the past 6 meetings, 7 of the last 8. San Francisco wants to put a stop to this. I want to jump on 49ers. I just need to get some... if Staley's in the lineup, I'm going to hammer it immediately. I like the 49ers here. I think the Cardinals are just a bad team. I know that there was some drop balls, but people are talking as if Rosen could have thrown for 300 yards if they weren't drop balls. Rosen was doing absolutely nothing, and Donnie and I talked about this on Tuesday. He was doing absolutely nothing until Earl Thomas got hurt, and this Niners team has the right run defense that can stop David Johnson. We got Reuben Foster and Fred Warner foaming at the mouth, ready to pounce on David Johnson. Joey Kerr says, do the 49ers deserve to be a favorite? I say, yes, they do, and yes, they can also cover. Why don't we start with you, Donnie? Cardinals at 49ers.
I'm glad you're on the same wavelength right now because, look, I like to watch games, watch game tape, and watch how some teams do. And again, it just seems like the NFL, just the gift that just keeps on giving with rookie quarterbacks and making, early starts and going on their first road start. You're going to get another one. Now, look, there's something to be said about they have played some decent defenses, Arizona. But this looks like a Pop Warner-style offense. You're looking at, look, and Rosen just took his first start last week. 145, 83, 168, and 171. That sounds like Air Force, Army, in college football, what they throw for. This is not a professional offense that they're running out on the field last week. Seattle was so bad, they couldn't even expose what they needed to versus this anemic Arizona offense. Jimmy, you talk about it. 38 yards passing at the half for an NFL team. Entering into the fourth quarter, 52 yards through the air. They should have got beaten that game 34-0 like the other games. Look, 6 points they scored against Washington, and that was a late junk touchdown. Shut out versus the Rams. Embarrassingly bad. Now, look, Chicago's going to make some teams embarrassed there. 14 points in that one. 17 points versus an anemic Seattle team. There's nothing that you could tell me where you say, hey, man, sharp play. I'm going to get on Arizona. And it looks like the Sharps, I guess you're weighing in 4.5 down to 4. You're seeing some 3.5s out here. The one thing you like about the 49ers, schematically, they're still very good on offense. It almost looks like they didn't even miss a beat with Garoppolo out of the lineup, going to Beathard, playing very well last week on offense. I don't know. Look, my money is nowhere near the Cardinals because if you're struggling just going forward, like it's the 1920s and you just learned how to forward pass and you're throwing jump passes with 2 hands, that's what the Cardinals look like they do on offense right now. I want no part about them. 49ers are nobody here for me, Jimmy. I agree with you.
Oh, I like hearing that. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about this game, Whale Capper.
Well, I guess before I get into my breakdown, as a Niners fan, do you want them to win this?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously we want a top draft pick, but I mean, how many years do we have to lose for?
Good point. That's fair. It's a home game. You want to get your young guys a little bit of excitement, I guess. Okay. Well, I bet this early in the week and I grabbed the grabbed the points with the Cardinals. My thinking was pretty basic. I hadn't really updated my stat model. I hadn't run my projections yet. I just looked at the number and I was like, CJ Beathard, 5.5-point favorite, really? And so I figured that this is going to get bet down. This is going to come down closer to 3. It was there's some soft numbers in there between 5.5 and 3.5, and so I kind of was trying to anticipate the line moving back to Cardinals. I don't feel great about it. All the points Donnie made were legit. This is a team that is bad, and they have a bad coach. The coach has done a particularly lousy job, especially end-of-game scenario, both the last 2 weeks. I don't think he is long for the I don't think he's long for the NFL based on what we've seen so far. Granted, it's a small sample size. Maybe he figures it out. Who knows? They're just not utilizing David Johnson very effectively. But all that said, positives for the Cardinals. I think their defense is legit. I think their offense has the metrics would tell you that they are terrible. But if you look at who they've played some exceptionally tough defenses. We've seen the Bears defense is absolutely outstanding. They have done decent things against talented units, in the last couple of weeks on offense. I think Josh Rosen has the tools and he's developing the chemistry with his young receivers that he's going to be able to move the ball here. I see this as a field goal kind of game. I think the way that you set it up and laid it out, you pretty much nailed it. This is like kind of a telltale under sort of game. The Niners defense, especially their linebacking weapons and Warner and Foster are going to be pretty tough to compete against. But that said, that this is it's a division game. It's going to be pretty tightly contested. And, I could see San Francisco winning by a field goal here, in which case I'm holding the ticket of plus 5.5. I'm feeling pretty good. So it's a pretty weak play for me. If it goes to 3, I'll probably swing for the middle just because I don't feel it's like Arizona's for sure going to win this by any stretch of the imagination. But it should be interesting to see how Rosen develops. And, good Lord, if the Cardinals coaches are watching and they might as well be, because they're certainly not game planning very well. If the Cardinals coaches are watching, use David Johnson outside the tackles for the love of God. That's all I have.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. Ray Williams says rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, fade all season. Drew Beren agrees with that. JP says Arizona Cardinals fade all season and next. But Troy V, exactly saying what you're saying, says will be decided by a field goal. Kingsley Maydew says the Cardinals are worse than the 49ers. That's a fact. Tomor doesn't believe at all in Beathard. You know what? Sure, Beathard wasn't good at Iowa. San Francisco injuries, I don't think they should be favored by more than 3. Shanahan is so much. We have such a coaching advantage here in this game, and Beathard understands the Shanahan system, better than Jimmy. And so I just feel like Donnie mentioned how good Beathard looked last week. I don't see that stopping. I agree with you guys about the Cardinals defense. It's not the defense that's the problem here. I just I want to take the 49ers so badly, and I guess I'm just trying to talk myself into it. Not sure if I will pull the trigger. Let's keep rolling. Donnie, it's not been going well for me backing your Philadelphia Eagles, but I am going back to the well again this week and taking the Eagles -3 at -115. This line has stayed all week at -3. The total opened at 44.5. Then there's some 45s. Now there's 46.5. We tried to figure out, Donnie and I, on Tuesday, what's going on with this Vikings defense. It clearly looks, you're just getting so much less than what you see on paper. Obviously, the Griffin loss hurts, but God, they just look terrible. 556 total yards allowed against L.A. Now, Philadelphia is dealing with issues of their own on defense, issues that I wasn't sure were going to be around this year. 436 total yards they gave up against Tampa. They couldn't protect a 14-point lead against Tennessee, and that broke my spirit. Cousins is throwing the ball well, 1,387 yards. Philadelphia's pass defense being torched by Julio Jones for 169 yards, Deshaun Jackson for 129, Corey Davis for 161. Carson Wentz did throw for 348 yards against the Titans in his second start of the year. Jeffrey looks like he's rolling. Philadelphia, I love hearing your breakdowns, Donnie. I'm going back to the well, Eagles -3, and I guess I'm getting a little less confident as the days go by. What are you thinking here? And can you give us injury updates? I know that McLeod is not going to be available. Just love hearing your Eagles breakdowns, Donnie.
Yeah, no, you're going to miss it. You're missing a couple key components here. Your best pass rusher, maybe best defensive lineman so far outside of Fletcher Cox has been Derek Barnett. He's going to miss this game with an injury. Maybe they're just going to hold him out, and hopefully he can play next on Thursday night versus the New York Giants. But one of the key guys, look, I mean, it sounds like crazy because a lot of people don't believe in running backs and how they can actually impact games. J.J. is going to play in this football game. He should be fine. Corey Clement doesn't look like he's going to go. But you missed that third down satellite back with Darren Sproles where when it's 3rd and 4, if you can just flip it out to the flat, it's an automatic first down. It doesn't matter. 4 guys are ready to defend him. He somehow, jukes his way to a first down. He's not going to be available in this, but you're right. The Philadelphia Eagles at home and on the road defense are unbelievably starkly contrast. The Eagles are one of the best teams in pro football over the past 2 to 3 years, especially under Doug Peterson at home. They seem to absolutely dominate other opponents. I like a more balanced team coming in because now it looks like Dalvin Cook's probably not going to play. That mysterious cramp that's been available for the past month. Latavius Murray's not going to be able to run the football in the front 7 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So you are going to have to throw. Kirk Cousins has some success against the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's a different team, different game. They got shellacked the past 2 weeks on defense. It's going to be interesting to see who shows up, but when you roll your head out there, it's hard to win football games against good competition here on the road. You're asking the Eagles to cover by 3. Same scenario last year. The Minnesota Vikings were a favorite. Oh, my God, Vikings are going to pace the Eagles. Eagles destroyed that team. I don't believe in really revenge-type situations because if we've all played sports in revenge, the last time you played the team from 2 towns over or high school and college and you beat the hell out of that team, you get them back on the field and laugh at them and be like, you know what? Get ready for round 2 beatdown in this one. I'm leaning Philadelphia Eagles -3. I'm not in love with the game because I don't think the spots are right just yet until the Eagles get immediately healthy out there. But I do like the Eagles at -3. I think the number is cheap, and they're a better football team than the Vikings.
Well, I like hearing that. I feel like we were both quite a bit more confident on the Eagles on Tuesday than we are here on Friday.
Yeah. Was hoping to get more guys back from injury, but you lose Barnett and Sproles still. Those are the guys you're waiting for to come back to make a difference.
Yeah. Jesse's girl says Eagles are my team, but they need to do something about Mills. He can't cover it all. Tomar says Eagles offensive line has struggled, but at home they should be better. Jay Peach not impressed by the Eagles, but it's early. What are you thinking here, Whale Capper? Vikings at Eagles.
Well, this is a great one. We could probably spend like a good 30 minutes talking about this game. And it's going to be pretty exciting. Obviously, NFC Championship rematch. Best game in the afternoon. I would say, actually, I'll have a question because I know Donnie pays attention to the line moves, and you have some kind of underlying philosophy about why numbers move and whatnot. We've seen the bookmakers not really hesitate to move 3 to a 3.5 this year. I've seen it, a handful of times when the money's been right. They are resisting big time here, moving this to Eagles -3.5. We keep seeing more and more money piles on. They just keep changing the index on the juice on -3 as opposed to hanging 3.5. I think they are very conscientious about people who are waiting for an opportunity to grab 3.5 on the Vikings, and they're trying to protect themselves from that. Is that your read as well?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting to me for a couple reasons. One being that I don't think the hook really matters in this one. I think this is going to be a relatively high-scoring game. I can make a pretty strong case for an over here. I think it's interesting that there's a bunch of good advanced analytics floating around out there already this season, more than we usually get in this point in the season in the NFL. And I've been really enjoying kind of scraping Twitter for all the information and data. One of the more interesting ones was basically coaching tendencies and how often coaches are passing on first down, which is something that like the super nerds were like harping on all season. Like, look, stop running on first down. Like, it's not plus EV to over the course of the season run on first down 60% of the time. Just stop. And a couple of coaches obviously have already figured this out. Philadelphia figured it out last year. And what's interesting is you look at the couple of teams that have really flipped their approach from last year to this year: Indianapolis Colts, Minnesota Vikings. What is the common denominator there between those offenses is that they have hired pieces from the Philadelphia Eagles to take over and call their offense. So you have seen, Minnesota is adopting, the good you can categorize good offensive approach and bad offensive approach right now across the league. And that's why you see totals like 39 on one game and 58 on another, right? I mean, like this is, there is a true kind of class system of, of offensive ability from an organizational standpoint. The Minnesota Vikings are in the haves, in my opinion. They have a passer who can get it done. They have weapons in the passing game who can get it done. And they are running a modern approach, as we saw with them hanging 31 points against the Vikings last Thursday. That, to me, is enough to get involved backing the Vikings even at +3. I could even make a case that if you like the Vikings, the money line is the right play as opposed to having 3 points. But, I think this is a high-scoring game. I think the Vikings are competitive. I think their pass-first approach is going to put a ton of pressure on the Philadelphia defense. And you're right, they play better at home. But what do we see in the 2 home games? We saw an Atlanta team completely fail in the red zone 3 times. That kept that point total down at what they ended up with, 12? Like, they left 21 points easily on the field in the opening night game. Atlanta did. Week number 3, it was just a god-awful weather game against Andrew Luck and the Colts, and that game played again on a cleaner day with sun out and minimal wind. I think you're talking about a much higher scoring game there. You just look at the box score. It should have been more points in that game anyway. So, I even though that there's kind of this narrative that the Philly defense is good at home, this pass defense is susceptible. We've seen some pretty horrific play out of a couple of pieces in the secondary. I know Donnie knows the names, and they have not been able to get after the pass rusher, to get after the passer in clear passing situations. That is maybe the only way you can really disrupt Cousins in this game, because the offensive line for Minnesota is not great, but they have Pat Elflein back. That guy is a legit player in the middle. He immediately solidifies that line. And if he's matched up against maybe the one guy that I'm scared of on the other side of the line, and Fletcher Cox, if he can neutralize him and give Kirk Cousins time, I think Kirk Cousins finds his looks down the field, scores some points, and I think we see a pretty tight, competitive game decided in the final minutes. And I'm happy having the dog and the points in that one. And I would also look over in this game, over 46. I would look at Minnesota Vikings team total over is going to be laughably low. When that thing finally opens, it's going to be like 21.5 or something, or 22 maybe, based on the implied total in line right now. So I would, those are kind of the way I'm leaning on this one, and I'll probably take positions on Vikings over and maybe Vikings team total over as well.
Interesting. What do you think of that breakdown, Donnie?
No, I like it there, because you should expect more points. You have 2 really, talented quarterbacks that can run around and extend the play out there, that are going to be able to have, time to throw. One would think have time to throw, because you're down a couple injuries on Minnesota side through suspensions and guys away from the team. And the Eagles pass rush hasn't woken up yet. So theoretically, you would think there would be more points than not, because you're right, a lot was left out there. And you bring up a good point there, Will Capper, when you talk about, the Eagles finally got it. Let's not forget who the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings is. One John DeFilippo, who was with the Philadelphia Eagles last year as a quarterback coach, and now takes that step up as the offensive coordinator. So they're going to be fluent. They're going to be going for it on 4th down. They get it. They're going to be extremely aggressive in situations where if it's 4th and 4 from, the 47-yard line going in, these guys go for it now, as opposed to punting it. And even you see some of these times where you say, you know what? Analytics says to go for it, but time, score doesn't. The Philadelphia Eagles still go. It'll be a minute and a half, and they have a 4th and 4 at midfield. They'll still go for it, even though if it means they're going to give up good field position the opposite way. So more points. And look, it opened up, 44 and a half. It's Philadelphia. It's Sunday. It's supposed to be in the 80s and decent weather for that 4:25 start. So you have a lot of things in your favor in this one if you're looking to go for some totals.
Yeah, that over.
I have
sorry.
One quick ad, or one quick thing I wanted to pick Donnie's brain on. Carson Wentz not looking as mobile as you would have hoped, maybe. Maybe they rushed him back. Maybe they got him out there a little too quick.
No, I think it's the reverse. I think he's every bit as mobile as he was in the past from the games that we have. The problem is the Eagles' offensive line is not holding up, and you're taking shots on 7-step drops as soon as you turn around. But he's been every bit as mobile. I even saw him a couple times in training camp practice in early August. I thought he was ready to go. I don't think mobility is going to be a problem whatsoever for going forward for him.
So you think he's close to 100%?
Close to 100%. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Exciting.
Well, it helps the over.
The over sounds more and more appealing the more you break this game down. Here's a play that I find very appealing, and that's Rams -7. I got it at -101. It opened at Rams -7. Then there were 7s, a couple 7.5s, and that's pretty much the way it stayed. The Rams Seahawks total opened at 49. Then there was 50s, 50.5s, and 51s on Tuesday. Now there's no 51s. It's back to 50s and 50.5s. We talked about the Earl Thomas injury being devastated. They just don't have very many impact leaders left. Bobby Wagner, and Donnie mentioned if KJ Wright gets healthy, sure. I love.
Always near the end of the show there, Drew, huh? We get a little bit of friction here.
I guess the listeners can probably hear that, huh? -7, 101 is a good number grab there, man.
Yeah, we'll wait. Well, I guess we'll try to carry it through till Jimmy gets his mic back in this. But I'm actually surprised, to be honest with you, Will Capper, at this game. I saw it open up around that 7 number, and I was one of the guys like, hey, man, can we get 6.5? Maybe some people will bite it back.
Yeah.
But the game going to 7.5 actually is a surprise for me.
Yeah, same. This is, kind of the classic old school in division, home dog +7, grab the points and forget about it, put it in your pocket, covers 60% of the time. No, not this team, not the Seahawks, not this year, not without Earl Thomas, not without KJ Wright. You got Bobby Wagner, Shaquille Griffin, and, that's about it on defense out there right now. Even the guy who was emerging, who I've kind of had my eye on, and Frank Clark on the D line. He's been creating some nice pressure. It looks like he's probably not going to be able to go. Guess what? You're facing the number 1 offense in the NFL, and it's not close. You're facing the number 1 offense in the NFL, probably going back to like the Randy Moss, Tom Brady 08, 07 Patriots. Like, that's how good these guys have looked. That's how much they're clicking. They are running it. The success rate that we're seeing out of these guys, it looks unsustainable, but they keep doing it every week. And it's just like, they're on a heater, and stepping in front of that and taking the home dog and the points here is just lunacy. I wouldn't shy away from backing Rams -7, and true line should probably be closer to 9.5, 10. Realistically,
yeah, no, that's what
yeah.
we all dial in. You see the 7.5 right there. I'm not sure that hook is even going to matter in this game, because the way you dial it up with the Rams, I don't think you're going to have any problems on turf or being in Seattle. It's really loud. There's nothing that Seattle does on defense outside of Wagner, who's an all-pro linebacker. We get that. But they put their running backs, wide receivers in positions of mismatches there, which there's nobody left in that secondary. They're going to run wild and do it. It's just a matter to me sometimes in these games where whatever the Rams want to do, like if they have that mindset, like, you know what, we finally get to embarrass Seattle, who's given us problems over so many years. Like, let's just run them up there, 45-21 or 24 in something in this environment. You even get shocked sometimes. You see a 50 in a Seattle game, because Seattle's not that good on offense. But this might be one of those games where we've seen it, where Seattle's just, Russ is running for his life for 4 quarters and just can't get the job done when the Rams are just eviscerating them on defense. I'm not so sure that hook even matters here, Drew.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that, I'm into the over on this, over 50, no problem. Yeah. You'll probably see some wild Russell Wilson magical type of plays.
Yes,
where he just is like, wow, did he really do that? And still, there's familiarity here. Marcus Peters, we know, isn't 100%. He can be picked on. Noah Talib. The defense long term, about the Rams, if you want to kind of talk about like how the landscape in the NFC is kind of shaping up, that defense being thin, you got to keep an eye on how these injuries play out, how they kind of develop their younger players who they're bringing in to backfill, because they're going to be, if they lock up a 1 seed, if they win 14 games and have home field in LA, we know they don't have a huge home field advantage in the playoffs. And if their defense is in any way, shape, or form thin or questionable, then they're susceptible to getting popped in the playoffs. So it's probably a little too early to get too excited if you're holding the Rams future ticket, because you need to see this defense develop a little bit and get healthy. And we know we're not going to see Talib again. And it's going to be awful tough to see how they match up against teams like the Saints or Falcons aren't probably going to make it. But, teams that have like just dynamic firepower are going to match up pretty well against these guys.
Yeah,
I agree. Jimmy, do we have you back?
I
we
think I'm
have
back.
the
Am I back?
tornado. Yes, there we
Beautiful.
go.
Great breakdown, guys. I'm completely with you guys. And so is a lot of guys in the chat. Joey Kerr say, I'm agreeing with you guys. It should be about 9.5. I really think that the Rams want to embarrass Seattle at CenturyLink. I mean, we remember when CenturyLink was the toughest place to play. They've now lost 4 of their last 5 home games, including a blowout loss to the Rams. I just feel like they want to put an exclamation mark on the passing of the torch in the division. And I'm very, very comfortable with this Rams spot at -7. I was thinking about the team total over. Do you guys prefer the team total over to the full game over? What do you guys think of this total? I heard that you said you like the over, Whale Capper. Do you guys both like the Rams team total overs?
I think you would have one in the same for me, because you would have to think the Rams are going to be carrying this total. So if you like over 50, the Rams should be in the 30s here, right?
What do you think, Whale Capper?
Yeah, I'm capping this one at about 31-21. Is that what is the implied team total is probably pretty close to that, maybe about 29.5. So you need to get into the 30s to hit that with the Rams.
Yeah,
Probably, yes.
So I mean, it's going to depend on price shopping a little bit, and I personally went over as opposed to waiting for a team total over, because Seattle's going to be desperate. They're going to be forced to throw. When we've seen Seattle stink on offense, it's been because they've been trying to do rinky dink, incorporate their running game.
Yeah, because the other teams allow them to stink, like the Dallas offense, Arizona's offense. Like, they allow them to stay in the game. Now you're going to have one team that goes, we got 14 in the first quarter. What are you going to do about it?
You're going to have to check, right? You're going to have to check. You're going to have to check. So Seattle gets into the 20s here, and then really, if Seattle gets into the 20s, I feel like the over cashes pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I agree. Great breakdown, guys. Let's move on to Cowboys at Texans. I'm very excited about this game. I get an extreme, as you guys know, just so much joy out of fading the Cowboys, but I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger here. It opened at Texans -3. Now it's -3.5. Total opened at 45. Now they're 45.5. Will Houston, build off of last week's showing? We talked a lot on Tuesday about will Watt and Clowney start playing well eventually. I don't know if they will. I'm in love with Rod Marinelli. He's the only thing I like on this Cowboys team. He always gets a ton. I think the Cowboys secondary is overachieving. Elliott now, looks very good. 426 yards. He had 152 yards on 25 carries in last week's 26-24 victory over the Lions. That's just the Lions' bad rush defense. Just put 8 guys in the box. 8 guys in the box every single play. 4 stack to beat you. Texans allow just 3.5 yards per rushing attempt. That's 4th in the NFL. Are the Texans like one of those perfect teams against the Cowboys? Watson, though, being sacked 17 times through 4 games. Cowboys rank 3rd in the league in sacks with 14. DeMarcus Lawrence will be all over him. But one thing Watson can do is run. He's rushed for 161 yards. We know that that's given Dallas a lot of trouble. They had trouble with Newton. They had trouble with Wilson. Cowboys were one of the best road teams in the league last year. I don't think they will be again this year. I would love to fade the Cowboys, but don't know if I can pull the trigger. Donnie, what do you think here? Cowboys at Texans.
No, you're right. I mean, it looks like a situation where you hang a line at 3. Houston's at home. Maybe they righted the ship, but I just can't get away from what they're actual doing this year overall. You look at the New England game, they lost 27-20. They go to Tennessee against an anemic Tennessee team with a lot of injuries. They took a loss in that game. You played the Giants at home, which seem like they're ripe for the beating every week, and you don't even show up. And then you go on the road versus Indianapolis, and you have a nice lead. You blow it, and then they're gifted a win because Frank Reich decides for some reason, I'm going to go for it with no relative chance to win the game, but a really good chance to lose it. Maybe you build off of that, but your team is what your team is at this point, right? Like, I just look and say, can Houston go out and cover the spread, let alone just winning a football game? Do I think they're more talented than the Cowboys? Absolutely. But when you're looking at coaching matchups, 2 of the biggest boneheads in the NFL are going to line up side by side in this football game against 2 quarterbacks that have some mobility, and be able to move the pocket. And I know from your perspective, Jimmy, when you look at Houston here, that defensive line should be able to eat against the Cowboys and disrupt what they want to do on offense. But I still can't get back the point. Something is broken with Houston right now where they just can't put a complete football game together yet.
Yeah, I'm hesitant. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this game, Whale Capper. I would love to fade the Cowboys.
Well, I like Donnie's point, and it is an opportunity lost that these 2 teams won last week, and that this wasn't like a prime time, like, loser coach gets fired live on TV on the field after the game is over. Because guess what? Both these coaches suck. They should both be fired. And the sooner it happens, the better the organization will be moving forward. God knows if whatever compromise Jason Garrett has on Jerry Jones, I guess, may prevent something like that from happening. But it is what it is. Bill O'Brien probably doesn't make it through this season. That's fine. I'm going to look for an over angle on this one, but I like your idea of fading the Cowboys and getting involved with the Texans here. Watson, I thought kind of. He didn't look comfortable. He didn't look particularly effective through the first 3 weeks of the season. He started to kind of find his groove against the Giants and just didn't quite have enough to get them back into that game to win. And against the Colts, even though it was close, even though it took Frank Reich making that very questionable decision to go for it on 4th and 4 and even questionable play call in that spot, I think it was Watson who was like, I'm not losing this game. Like we are getting this done. He's got that kind of winner's mentality, which is pretty cool. And at home in prime time against the in-state rival, I think Watson's a guy that I would get behind and look for him to overperform, or at least perform up to his level on a good day. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams match up with each other. Defensively, I think Romeo Crennel coordinating this Texans defense is really doing a poor job. It is amazing that the Texans scored a touchdown last week on defense. Clowney was in Luck's pocket for like a third of that game. He was in his face. He was in his pocket all damn game. Clowney was the defensive player of the week, crying out loud. J.J. Watt had 3 sacks a couple weeks ago. These guys are playing well on the defensive line, and yet they're giving up 34 points. What? Like, this is ridiculous. It does not bode well for them being able to keep the Cowboys make the Cowboys look bad as they have against the likes of Carolina, as they have against the likes of Seattle. I think we see the Cowboys score into the mid-20s here, and if we get Deshaun Watson primetime type of performance where he shows out and kind of does what he needs to do to win, I think this is like a 27-24 kind of game, and it gets over 45 pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I like that total breakdown. I think that's nice. I mean, when Sean Lee is not in the lineup, I like Sean Lee just like Kuechly. When either of them are not in the lineup, I just think fade, 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 fade. What do you think about this total, Donnie? 45.5?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, look, Houston should be able to score in this football game. As long as both their wide receivers are healthy. I don't know if Lamar Miller is going to give it a go, but it is a lower total, and they're one of my favorite games in NFL history. Actually, it comes from the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys when they had Quincy Carter. I believe it was back in 2002 when Houston just came into the league. I believe it was the same type of environment, a Sunday or Monday night football game where Houston embarrassed the Cowboys and actually beat them as first game in history for the Houston Texans. So that was pretty enjoyable. But you're looking at 45.5, and again, it gets back to an NFL game. You should be able to cover something in the 40s unless you just have catastrophic turnovers in the red zone, which Houston Texans have done before. It should generally go over because you have two athletic quarterbacks that should be able to move the pocket. And when you have athletic quarterbacks and a really good pass rush, that makes for a lot of street ball situations where they juke one guy and you can end up running 20 to 30 yards downfield or have a big play on offense. Just need the clapper on his side just to call an effective football game. And I think Deshaun Watson could make enough plays on offense to get over the total, but 45.5 aren't made to be under in the NFL. That's just a fact, especially in a dome.
Yeah, great breakdown, guys. Let's move on to the Monday Nighter Redskins at Saints. Dealing with, this is the first week where we have teams off of byes, the Panthers and the Redskins. On Tuesday, Donnie and I talked about, I shouldn't say in love. I like the Redskins quite a bit here. I thought they were being disrespected. I know that the Saints are deadly offensively at home, but this Redskins defense is healthy. They've had the extra week to prepare. Now we know that the return of Ingram will help the New Orleans running game. Also, Josh Doxson not practiced the last 2 days, dealing with more heel issues, off to a very slow start, just 5 catches in 3 games. I want to take the Redskins here. I would like to. Adrian Peterson says he's ready to rock. Josh Norman and Trent Williams had time to heal. They've been easing their way into practice this week. I want to take the points here. I want to take the Redskins here. What do you think? Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? Redskins at Saints. Opened at 7. Now, then 6.5s on Tuesday, and now there's no 7s around. There's 6.5s and 6s. The total is at 52.5. What do you think here, Whale Capper?
I think the Redskins are a live dog in this one. I'm with you at plus 6.5 here on Washington. Fool's gold a little bit with the Saints defense this year. Boy, we're seeing legitimate sophomore slump out of some of their key pieces in that secondary. That doesn't bode well for Alex Smith, who's he's got some rhythm, got some reps now, and building some chemistry with with a pretty nice complement of weapons in Washington. I think Washington overall is an underrated team, and I wouldn't be surprised in November, December if we're talking about how they fit into the playoff picture across the NFC. The interesting note that kind of made me back away a little bit from being particularly confident in this Redskins side is that the Superdome early in the season on a Monday night can get pretty wild. It can be a pretty significant home field advantage there, just in terms of disrupting snaps and kind of giving the home defense just that much of an edge over the offense in terms of disrupting the timing and the snap especially. You combine with that the fact that Drew Brees is probably going to break the all-time passing record in this game. I really dread going against like the milestone games. It's that you're in the game, you're watching it play out, and you're like 20 minutes goes by and it's just Saints, and the crowd is just pumped up, and it's just like, oh God, why am I on the Redskins? So just be wary if you're backing the Redskins that moment will happen in the second quarter probably. But I'm kind of hoping that happens in the first half. The fans kind of lose a little steam, and then the Redskins can come back in the second half and maybe even get a W here.
I like the sounds of that. I'm haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm getting closer and closer. Donnie, Redskins at Saints.
I think the Redskins offense sets up pretty good against the Saints. And in this game, if you're looking more from a side perspective, it's always hard to go against New Orleans in prime time in the Dome. They're just seemingly set up for these type of games. You get a little bit of help back at running back, and they should be able to move the football against Washington. But I don't see a lot of sacks in this game, which is going to lead me to looking at an over. I think Alex Smith's going to be able to escape the pocket. I think he's going to have plenty of time to do whatever he wants to do. 53, it opens up at 51, 52, now sitting at 53. I still think that's doable being in the Dome because you're right. It is a monumental game. Everybody's going to hype it up, and Drew Brees is going to come in. And one thing that Drew Brees does do on primetime football, he's going to throw, and he's going to throw it a lot. Points will be scored in this football game. I would be shocked if the game stays under the total. I mean, 24-17 type game. This game has one of those, 37-31 games written all over it. I think Alex Smith's going to play very well in this environment, knowing that, look, we like Alex Smith if it's going to be a close game versus like the Colts or, he can dink and dunk his way down the field. But the same thing we talked about earlier with styles make fights where Seattle's going to have to throw the football. Alex Smith's not coming into this game going, hey, guys, let's just move the chains. In order to beat the New Orleans Saints typically on a primetime game in their house, you have to go toe-to-toe with Drew Brees, not take some sort of we're going to win the game 21-17 and hold the football. I think you get some points here.
I like that. I like that breakdown. I will end up pulling the trigger on the Redskins. I'm very excited about this Monday nighter. Now, Whale Capper, as you came in halfway through the show, were there any games on the early card that we didn't discuss that you find appealing?
Well, I was a little shocked to hear Donnie make a case for the over in Browns-Ravens. That was probably my favorite look of the week, I think, is under in that one. I bet it on the open at 47. This is screaming under at me. Not only do you have a full, healthy complement of players on the Ravens defense, but you add Jimmy Smith back to the mix. I think John Harbaugh's performance over the years against rookie quarterbacks, he just absolutely knows how to fluster these guys and get them, to make mistakes. And, Baker Mayfield's obviously going to have his antenna up, and he's going to try to not make the key back-breaking error. But I can just see lots of third down incompletions and, punts and field position type of gamesmanship. The Browns defense is better than they looked last week against the Raiders, giving up 42. They have some talented pieces, and I think they match up pretty well against a Ravens team who's going to be without their key piece at running back. So to me, this is a game that's going to be all about like who can be a little bit more efficient through the air, and it's going to be a little bit more of a chess match. And under 47 was a little too good to be true. When I looked up and I saw that that's what they hung that number at, I couldn't wait to get a little tickle under on that. So looking for like a 23-20 kind of game. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the Browns have a difficult time even getting into 20. And I would really look for the Ravens to just kind of be an under team for the next handful of weeks. Now that they got Jimmy Smith and Brandon Carr in the secondary, they're going to be really tough to pass on. And this team, I think the Ravens are for real. They're here to challenge some of the top teams in the AFC, in my opinion. And I think they get the win. And I think this one is kind of a no doubter under in my mind.
Interesting stuff. I like that breakdown. It is an absolute treat to rock with you guys every Friday. Man, this is a very exciting week of football. Some big marquee matchups. I'm very excited about the Jags. I'm very excited about the Titans and beating that line. I'm just 18-18 so far, but I'll take that. Beginning of the season, I'll take that, and I'll get ready to roll with you guys. I think we're going to have a big week. Thank you so much for joining us, Whale Capper. Before Donnie puts a bow on this show, Whale Capper, will you say a goodbye to all these great cappers that join us on the chat and watch these videos?
Absolutely, and happy belated birthday to you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
And congratulations on beating the line in that Jags-Chiefs game. If you're watching this and you don't know about how important beating the line is over the course of the season, get familiar with it. Getting closing line value matter. The narrative, I've heard people spin narratives of the season so far. And it's like, contrarian angles are just hitting. Well, no. Beating the closing line has mattered a ton this year. If you are consistently beating the closing line, you are going to be winning in this league long term. So, do your handicapping early. Try to understand how the markets are going to move, and get the better of these numbers, and you're going to find yourself winning long term in the NFL. And with that, I really appreciate all you guys tuning in and giving us awesome questions and commentary. And I love talking to you guys on Fridays. And best of luck this weekend.
Thanks so much, Whale Capper. You guys definitely follow Whale Capper on Twitter. Also follow my man Donnie Rightside on Twitter. Donnie, my man, another week in the books. Would you put a bow on this bad boy and send us into the sunset, into the weekend?
Yep, a lot of fun again on the show here. As we like to say, the Friday's Director Cut edition. We had some planes flying over for the Whale Capper. We had a tornado in Costa Rica. We always keep it lively here on Fridays to set you guys up. Stay tuned for Low Shack in the Bag. A lot of good stuff also over the weekend, folks. You have the closing line both on Saturday and Sunday, prepping you for Saturday NCAA college football and Sunday NFL football. As always, information is king on this. The best part about it, myself, Whale Capper, Jimmy, we don't agree on all points, but there is some salient things both sides that you can weigh in and make some money on your own. From everybody here at sportsbookreview.com, NFL is king. It's here, the Audible Tuesday and Fridays. It's a lot of fun doing the show with both Jimmy and Whale Capper. We'll catch you guys later. Tune in for the weekend shows. Let's have some fun. Let's make some money out there, folks. Have a good weekend.